my name is Megan. Welcome back to my channel, Megan Chown Vlogs, where I talk about fitness, travel and dogs. Today I'm going to be going through a video on tips if you're thinking of travelling to Montenegro. So Montenegro is a small Balkan country that has been an independent country since 2007. It borders, on its west side is Croatia, and then moving around you have Kosovo, Serbia and Albania. The main language spoken there is Serbian and they use euros for currency. I recently came back from a 3-day trip to Montenegro with my friend Amutha, and I wanted to give you some tips and tricks if you're thinking of heading there. There will be a travel vlog to follow as well. So first couple of ones that I've briefly mentioned already. The main language is Serbian, but most people we came across did speak English. We did go to the touristy areas, but most people did speak English. The currency is euros, and I would highly recommend taking actual cash because the card machines are few and far between where you can use to pay in restaurants and things like that. So I would highly recommend taking money out. With regards to where to stay in Montenegro, we flew into Podgorica, which is the capital city and the main airport in Montenegro. We were planning to stay there for the 3 days that we were there, but actually we found out that most of the tours went from Kotor, which is down in the southwest of the country and on the coast. After the first day, we woke up in Podgorica and decided to move our accommodation to Kotor. The accommodation that we stayed at in Podgorica was really lovely. The people were lovely there. It was very comfortable. It's just we didn't feel there was much going on in the capital, and as I mentioned, most of the tours went from Kotor. Where we stayed in Kotor was a fantastic hostel. It was called Old City Hostel, and I will link it below in the description. Milan, the hostel owner, could not do enough for us. He was so kind, gave us loads of tips, helped us with booking tours as well, and also there was a hostel dog. I mentioned that we originally stayed our first night in Podgorica itself, so when we flew into Podgorica, I looked online beforehand and they said there was a train from the airport into the city centre. When we got there, we looked on Google Maps and found that the train station was a 15-minute walk from the airport, which was fine. We did this 15-minute walk down a track and then across the lines to a hut with no timetables, nowhere to buy tickets, no information, but there were other people there and there were train tracks. At one point a freight train came past, so the train tracks were working. So we just assumed that because there were people there who were speaking Serbian, that they knew a train was coming. So we waited for 40 minutes and thankfully a train did turn up. However, if you're relying on this for transport, I would not. I would recommend getting a taxi from the airport into Podgorica centre and then from there taking buses throughout Montenegro. So a few bits of information of when you're actually staying in Montenegro. Quite a lot of the things that you see there are outdoor things. So for example, Skadar Lake, the national park, and it requires good weather. We did not have good weather. We're hoping to go back next year for better weather. So I would say if you're booking a last minute trip to Montenegro, look at the weather forecast beforehand. Make sure the weather forecast is good for when you go. We had a really rainy day when we were in Kotor and our tour got cancelled. So we made friends in our hostel, but it just felt a bit of a wasted day because we were only there for 3 nights. So I would say if you're planning to travel on the rainy days, unless it's really rainy and snowy and they've cancelled the transport. Otherwise, bring a good book. I've mentioned the tours a couple of times. We did a tour with a group called 360 Monty, who I found watching a YouTube video on the plane on the way over. By some coincidence, the 360 Monty group was affiliated with a hostel that we were staying in. So we were really easily able to book onto the tours. They were able to give us the information. We met for the tours at the hostel, just outside the hostel, so that was really helpful. Would highly recommend their company. We did the Northern tour, which was really good. It'll be included in the Montenegro vlog. We wanted to do the one that had Skadar Lake in it, but as I mentioned, it got cancelled because of the weather, but hopefully next time. And then practicalities for when you're staying in Montenegro. Check if your phone provider has internet there. So Amutha and I were on 3, and Montenegro isn't a 3 at home destination. There is really good Wi-Fi in most establishments, but if you're wanting data to get around the place, then that might be something that you want to look into. Also the power sockets, they are European ones, but in the hotel that we stayed in, quite a lot of the sockets had really slim holes, and one of the power adapters that we brought just would not go into the hole. Thankfully, I'd brought a different one as well, but if you get 2 different versions of the European outlets, I would advise taking them. And finally, the people of Montenegro. They are so lovely, minus a lady at check-in at the airport who was potentially one of the rudest people I've ever met. But you know, what are you gonna do? On a side note, if you're checking into Podgorica airport, even if you've checked in online, they want you to go to the check-in desk, regardless of if you have check-in baggage, and pick up a random piece of paper. Don't ask me why. They don't explain it. They don't tell you where the check-in desk is. They're just really rude about it. But there we go, we move on. Where was I? Yeah, so the people in Montenegro are just so friendly. Like, they try their best to help you. Their English is just so good. When they're saying, you know, my English isn't very good, I'm like,
well, it's far better than my Serbian.
And they're just, you know, really helpful. Like the lady in the hotel when we said we were moving to Kotor, she was so helpful with organising a taxi, giving us recommendations, and yeah, just a really pleasant experience overall. I hope you enjoyed this little snapshot video of tips if you're going to Montenegro. I realise it's really niche, but we just really enjoyed our time there. It's sort of given us inspiration to go back to the Balkans again next year, which we're hopefully going to do. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.